something like this. You don't need anything too thick, but do prepare yourself and prepare to get very messy. Your fingers are going to get really messy, actually. So I don't use too much. I just use a thin strip of it. This will actually come off of it. Because you really don't need too much to add that bulk. So for this here, I'm going to just do this. And this one fell apart, so I'm just going to stick it together so I can use it to ply. So I'm just going to add dots of glue, and then I'm going to fold it over, add more glue, and fold it over. And you can do it as many times as you want. I only do it as much as I physically can before the glue starts gluing my fingers. So then I'm going to just dot this piece gently. You don't need too much glue. I'm going to start from this side here, and I'm just going to wrap it down. So you see it's quite messy, oops, and it will fall apart, but it does, it's similar to paper mache where you just add glue to the paper, in this case toilet paper, and then when the glue hardens, you've got something that is quite thick, but it's quite hard as well, so it's secure. So do the rest with this. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going all the way down, but if you're going to use it for an arrangement, you might not need to come all the way down, and that's because if you do, and depending on how you actually, see now I've got tons of this on me, depending on how you actually secure it in your vase, you might not need to come all the way down. For example, I'll just show you. For example, this one here, I didn't go all the way down, and this one actually I only bolted up around here. Here I left it fairly thin, and here I didn't do anything at all. I left it bare, and that's because when I actually put it into my arrangement, one, it won't be seen, but two, when I use a floral pin frog, this would be quite thick, and there would be no reason for it to be this thick in order for it to be secured properly using the floral frog. You can simply have a dimension of this radius, and it would fit very, very comfortably in the floral frog. So I just don't even bother, or else it's just a lot more work to have to completely cover this. For example, this here, I would never stick it into a floral pin frog because it's finished. Likely what will happen is it'll get damaged. So then I just think there's no point of finishing it because it will just get damaged. And the other thing is, if you need to trim this, you really don't want to cut into something like this, you know? You really want to cut into something that is half done. Otherwise, you've got the problem of spending too much time on something that won't, in the end, pay off. So in any event, so I've covered this part. I'm just going to leave that part there. I'm just going to cover a little bit, about maybe here and here. See how far this Kleenex or this toilet paper goes. Okay, so something like this. I'm going to come back around here and come out to here, and I'll come back and deal with that. In the meantime, I'm just going to come around and wrap this part here and just let it go like that. So I'm going to just fix this part because this lump isn't properly covered. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a piece like this, quickly cover it like this. And then and go back around and cover that, this fork, essentially, fork in the road. Okay, so I'm going to come around and I'm going to just do this and wrap this. And then I might as well naturally come around like this here. And I'm going to tear it off. So the great thing about the tissue paper, or sorry, essentially it's Kleenex, Kleenex or toilet paper, is that with multiple layers you can kind of squeeze it and it will blend seamlessly into the thinner parts. But your hands do get messy. So that's the structure for the fatter parts. This one's quite fat, so I probably wrapped it twice, or I used a thicker piece of toilet paper. Now what I do is I wrap it. So I wrap it with crepe paper. This is just a piece of crepe paper. Doesn't matter what the length is. Just cut strips. So you just cut strips across the grain. What I would recommend is you cut both thicker strips and really thin ones. So I like to use really thin ones because I can get into these nooks and crannies a lot better. But you could go with thicker ones for the main strip, main branch, and that would be a little bit faster. So I've got some strips here that I've prepared already. Those are just leftovers, but I'm going to start with the bottom section and then I'm going to go up. And you can do it either way. You can go this way or that way, but I do find that if you are consistent, it's probably better. So I'm going to go from this side and wrap it. And just dot it with glue as you go. Although the toilet paper is a bit wet, so there is some glue on it. Just take it like this. And as you are wrapping it down the stem, pull at it so that's nice and tight. So that way when you push it, it's not going to be like a marshmallow. So now I'm at the crossroad. I'm just going to wrap this as far as I can go. So sometimes you have to be quite inventive in terms of how you wrap it. Where's my big one? Okay. So this thing is gross. Look at that. Let's go back to the crossroad, and when you do start again, just start from where you finished off so that you are going in one direction. So the spiraling down of the stem is in one direction. That way when you actually do color it, it's not going to be super obvious that you're doing it in different directions. And you don't notice it now, but you'll notice it later. So now I'm going into these smaller sections here. I'm going to go as far as I can, and then I'm going to stop and I'm going to swap up to the thinner strips. Oops. And that's because you start having difficulties getting really nice and smooth bark. So I'm just going to go back here. I might want to come up here a little bit. Like this. And just keep going with that. Just wrap it down, and down, and down. And so you just continue doing this until you've got it all covered, if that makes sense. Okay. I'm going to skip to a piece where I have finished doing all of this. When you are at the end, what I like to do is I just, you know what, let me show you at least once what I do at the end. So I just keep on going. So let me just go put down this one actually, and I'll show you what I do at the end. Once you get to here, you probably just do this and then wrap it around. Yep, and I missed a piece. If you do miss a piece like this, don't feel bad about going back to it and adding a short piece to it and just wrap it. You really won't notice that it's not part of the long piece. I mean, obviously, unless if it's under a microscope, but most of your pieces won't be. But it is important to get it as smooth as possible. It just saves you a lot of time and a lot of work. Otherwise, you have to go back and fix it, and that just adds to your workload. Okay, so now we're getting to the tip, and all I do with the tip is I wrap it all the way to the end. Wrap it all the way to the end, and then at some point, I decide I'm going to come back down like this. Come down like this, and I'm going to wrap it again like that. Now, you can't really see because right now I've got glue all over it. Sorry, let me just redo that part. There. I bend it down, and then I go back around the other side. And I literally take it off as soon as I can because I don't want to be spiraling down the opposite direction. It would be too obvious. But what I do with the tip is you can either push it down, or what I like to do is I stick my nail in there. And I emphasize that there is a piece coming down. I don't know if you can see that, coming down. I do that because sometimes some of the stems, it'll look like the bark is coming out and off of the branch. And I want to emphasize that because this is the prime opportunity. It does that already with the crepe strip. So I might as well emphasize it and look like it's intentional. So that's what I do. Now I'm going to switch over to one that is done, and then I'll show you what I do in terms of attaching the berries and the leaves and the coloring. So I've got something like this. Ugh, this is just, can't stand this. Normally I would wash my hands in between these stages, but not really something I can do right now. So here is an example of a branch that isn't quite done. And this one actually even left out because when I attach a leaf or a berry to it, I can just, at the same time, finish the stem. But you'll see that I haven't finished this at all. And in fact, this one I placed a 16 gauge at the bottom to support it because this only ended up here. This was like this. Essentially it was like this, and I attached a 16 gauge. There's my 16 gauge right here. So depending on what you need is, for example, this one I went down all the way. It just depends on where you think you're going to need to place this. So let's start with this one. This one's a lot easier to do.